that absolutely everyone recognizes, the household names, let's say, where Taplast has a chance to become a household name maybe if he performs well in this stage 2, in this game 2 as well. This is, of course, the loser lobby, let's say, the players that were not able to get top 4 in game 1. So players that really have to fight for the top 4 in this game. Whoever gets 7th or 8th in this game, 2 bad results in a row is going to have a very hard time making that comeback and coming back into the rest of this tournament today.
It's 2022. We can figure out a better name than the loser lobby, right?
It's an alliteration. I think it's a pretty good one, Guido.
The loser lobby,
if you come up with something better, let me know.
The lower lobby, the larger lobby.
I think loser lobby is a little bit more.
The little legend lobby, okay? It's the little legend lobby, okay?
All right, the loser little legend. All right, I'll take it. All right.
Or it's just a lower bracket. Like, it's kind of equivalent to a lower bracket, right? Like, again, like all games here are kind of like winning ins to a certain extent, right? Because again, with the way that the lobbies are seeded, it's the top 8 players playing against the top 8 players and the bottom 8 against the bottom 8, right? So
it's a temporary loser lobby. This is just for this game 2. Players can win, and they will be in the winner lobby next time. That's how it's going to function here with, of course, 2 different lobbies all throughout this day 2 with 16 players in the tournament. But what are we seeing here? Noerum, we saw him in the last game. We're seeing him now. Had a very unfortunate loss streak into 10 HP into contested 5-way AO Shin comp that did not pan out. I think things can't possibly go worse for him in this game. What do you think the start looks like for him, Uda?
It's a very weird spot, right? Because this is a board where it looks like, okay, I'm just playing strongest board, right? But then you look at the items and you're like, okay, it's either Cone or it's Runeance or it's Static Shiv. It's going to be an interesting one here. I like that there's no pre-level into place, I think, right? There's no pre-level, right? I like that as well because you can hit like a Heimerdinger pair. These are not great options. Ascension is kind of just catch-all. It's okay, depends on the composition here. Has early Jades, though this could be worked with. Bruba is not in the lobby, so there's at least there's one less player contesting you. You already know that. Has the early Guardian opener as well with a tier 2. That's going to be absolutely immense for him. The main concern right now is to sell this Tahm Kench 2 to level to pick up the Gnar, right? Like
that the augments on the side here, all of them looking pretty generic. Nothing slotting you into directly one comp. No emblems being picked up that force you to play one specific comp all the way through. 2 better together players is going to be the case. So definitely an interesting pickup. We see just some generic ones throughout the Hunt, Ascension, Second Wind, Electro Charges, all these very good immediate board strength items or augments rather that you're happy to pick up at any point in the game.
Yeah, I think Electro Charge is one of the ones that kind of just goes in and out depending on like what people actually are feeling like on that day, right? It's fantastic in Jades, for example. It's not as strong in the other game now. It's been changed to being a scaling augment more so than it was before. I think that has also kind of impacted it, right? So that's something you need to look out for here. But Noerum Levels decides to not slam anything in terms of items here. Just wants to keep his options open for now. I think that is a fine way to approach this. Whereas you can see Chuzo here taking the conscious decision here to slam a Thieves Glove instead of just trying to go for like IEJG.
And we saw it all throughout day 1. Also in this day 2 set, one of the premier one-cost carries in stage 2 that can keep you very healthy. Electro Charge are going to work fairly well with set as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Chuzo here. Vladimir too. I mean, it's like where are we standing on Vladimir these days, David? Because like, well, I really don't know. Because like for a while, like I remember my first playtest game before we even went to PBE, right? Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna play Vladimir reroll, and I won the lobby. I was like, hey, cool, Vladimir reroll is back, and then Vladimir's just been non-existent for the entirety of the set, more or less.
I used to play him a lot when I was playing Nidalee reroll, at least for stage 2. Not really a viable strategy to go for, unfortunately, Wida, as we all know, in this stage of set 7. So Vladimir doesn't really find a place in most comps for Astral as well. It's kind of iffy, but we did see quite a bit of Varus actually yesterday, but Vladimir obviously does not really find a place in that comp going into the mid game.
Yeah, definitely not here. Again, we're talking about set, right? Gluteus here just has a decent setup here. Hand of Justice is one of my favorite items. Slam because it goes AD and get our AP. Tristana picked up here. Do you want to just kind of sack your streak and wait? You could actually double level. You could double level, sell the Yone, go to level 5, play Trainer. I mean, this is kind of out there, right? Because like it's not like he's super rich. He's gonna go with the pre-level instead. Like, there's no way that's the play, right? He's just going to go for the Rage Wing setup instead, which I think is better. I think this is a much better setup. I was just saying that if you really wanted to get that trainer stacking going, right, you have the option to do that in a not-so-gentle fashion.
With second win in set 2, I think you feel like you're strong enough. You don't have to level to 5 to guarantee that you continue this win streak. Instead, just pre-level and you know, not be in too bad of a spot with your econ going to the rest of this stage 2.
Also, Kane is just like after the changes being, I think it's capped out on 30 rage now. I think it's just Kane is just such a good unit in the middle stage of the game, especially also early on, because like he just uses abilities so often, and he's a very good item carrier. He's not a unit that you feel overly attached to, right? Like he's not really used a whole lot to keep together specific things in your board, stuff like that. Okay,
Varus with the bow is on the carousel.
There's also
is that going to be a pickup?
I'm surprised it's
like Zbrojson. And Zbrojson, once again, I mean, I don't want to kind of continue repeating it, but he feels so comfortable playing on a loss streak. It seems like every single game we saw him on stream, you look down, there he is in 8th place all throughout stages 2 and 3, and then somehow with that 3-5 roll down is almost always able to stabilize. Did it in game 6 yesterday to secure his spot in this day 2 with a fantastic win with that Swain carry.
Yeah, I think if you miss the Mirage here, there's going to be the Warlord's Honor, which is one of the Mirages that if you get a good start, it's definitely playable. Can be harder to transition into the later stages of the game, though, because of like just the balance of it, right? Because you need to win rounds to stack it up, and when the only round you can end up winning if you don't really pull off a strong enough transition, being the PvE rounds, you could find yourself in a tough spot to get the maximum value out of the Warlord's Honor.
What's going to be the angle here for the Spat Weed up? What do you think this is going to end up building into?
It could be anything right now, right? Like you could even just be hoping to get a Tactician's Crown, right? Like there's so many different ways here because he's not committed to anything. Something that we haven't really discussed and something that is underappreciated by a lot of people is Assassin Shio Yu, for example, right? Like that could be an option. You have a strong core of Jades already, but then you look at the bench, right? It's worth noting Salvyyy is 20 golds, level 5, while holding 3 pairs on the bench that can be more or less impactful depending on which route he wants to go down here. Not holding the Shen, not holding the Jinx, which means that he's probably not looking to play Cannoneers in any stretch of the imagination, which I think is a fair assessment. His item choices are not necessarily super good for him as well right now. Wait, is he actually just 2 components in total? I'm not tripping here.
Ouch.
That is why he has that much money. Like I was like, why is he so rich?
And so unfortunate that he won that fight in the 3rd round, because this is definitely a start that you want to try and lose streak all the way through. You have a lot less components, you have a lot less items being slammed. Generally, you're going to be much weaker than most of the players on average. But that win kind of ruined his loss streak coming into Krugs.
Yeah, but it's a full item start, like it's full gold start. Again, it could be a mage spat, right? But even when you're looking at mage spat compositions, you kind of tend to bank off of an early Silas as well, to a certain extent here. Speaking of banking win streaks, gluteus here has now made decision to put the trainer in. Fantastic Nomsy angle as well here, but it is a relatively tough board to beat here, right? The dual Lotus with the crit glove on the Karma just means that there's going to be so much damage going to come through from the Karma too, despite whatever nerfs and changes she's gone through. Even without Dragon Nest, she's still an absolute crank in the early game, and gluteus is going to pay the price for making a swap, and it's going to be losing a streak going into the Crocs here.
So unfortunate, just needed one more win to guarantee the 5 streak coming into Krugs, and just barely missed out with that loss he got there against, like you mentioned, a very strong board. The Taric 2 saw already, the Jade, the Sustain, so effective in stage 2.
It really is, right? And Taric, like while Taric very often gets thrown to the wayside at the first gen possible in the late game, he also because of the fact that so much of the early game is based off of auto attacks, like the additional armor that you gain from the ability of Taric ends up being pretty significant, especially when it's a Taric 2. Okay.
I have a chance to make 30 here, can build a Runons, for example.
Silence QSS is also an option.
Yeah, depends if you want to go for that Siphon angle, which is definitely a possibility, or maybe just for the Corki if he's able to find it. But again, we're still a little bit far away from that. Still level 5, gonna go to 6 probably on 3-2. Zbrojson, another player to watch out for, doing the same thing we saw him do so many times.
It's Swain.
It's again, he's throwing it back. He missed game 1 and he said, you know, I'm just gonna do exactly what I did last game in game 6 and just start from there, get a 1st place, and try and get myself back into this tournament after being essentially 1 game down to the rest of the field.
Yeah. Again, you can see the rod here. Clear intention of slamming the Rage Blade, most likely. He needs to get that going for himself, right? Like, Sway without Rage Blade is just not really a unit. You just need that layer of, attacks be coming through, because once Swain starts to ramp up, he's going to be a massive, like, insane unit here, right? I think that this is probably going to be a 3-2 roll down. We've seen Zbrojson kind of take a liking to the 3-5, but I think he's taking way too much damage to really fully sustain it. But again, he's trying to hit something like a Swain too, which is going to be kind of challenging at this point in time here.
Tricky augments. Yeah, had to reroll. And these augments are also a little bit tricky, Weeda.
Oh, if he really wants to go for it, Rich get richer. Okay, goes for the Geolotus. I think that's understandable. Okay, it's a 3-5.
Yeah, I think Zbrojson has made it pretty clear that this is the playstyle he feels comfortable going for. Some would say he needs to have a little bit of luck. We saw yesterday in that game 6 how this Shyvana and Nico in very few rolls when he went level 7. And we'll see if he can emulate the same thing coming into this game. Has a Swain already set up here. Chuso going to pick up. Going to roll there. Ascension is a possibility. Has Electric Shard already. So immediate board strength is here.
Has a Shio already.
Ooh, that's even more board strength, Weeda.
That is indeed even more boss ring. Has that slant Edge of Night as well, so is kind of lacking the healing option, which is one of the primary ways for Shio to stay alive in these combat phases here. Should still beat Zbrojson because of the lack of the Rage Blade, I would assume at least, but it could be a situation where there's just not going to be enough damage here to be pushed.
Even if it's a loss, I think it's going to be not a huge one, but yeah, Shoyu's going to definitely start deleting the Swain with the CC, especially no kit has been built yet. And another loss for Zbrojson, finds himself at 44 HP. The roll downs we saw yesterday on stream were at 40 HP and 37, I think, in that game 1. So going to probably be a little bit lower than that if he loses his next fight as well before that carousel. And going to be the all-in moment at 3-5. Definitely going to stick with Zbrojson to see if he's able to once again stabilize. If he isn't able to, 8th place in this game, or a bad placement overall, having 0 points instead of 1 point in that game 1 is definitely going to put him in a very, very tough spot for this day 2.
Yeah, definitely right, and this is just kind of like how you come into to get to the first game of the day. You're missing out on a point. We do see Salvyyy has gone for that Dragon Horde here, right? So he's going to be getting those additional AD and AP coming through on his dragons. No extra. Okay, Sappho again. What is it with him in early days in like Warlords, right? And this time around, his setup is much better. There's no random static shiv, right? He has the actual AP scaling needed. And if you can find the healing augments as well coming through on the final choice, whether that's going to be Celestial Blessing 2, or that's going to be the the Fill the Hunt, for example, a second wind, I would like to see him pick up like a JG, for example, because like the best way for you to make use of the extra AP generated from the Warlord's Honor is to get that spell quick going.
And Zbrojson beat his own record, going to be rolling down at 36 HP, 1 HP less than he had in that game 1 yesterday. And we'll see if he'll be able to stabilize, do the impossible once again. Yesterday, I remind you, he was at 40 HP. He rolled down, and then he did not lose one more fight for the rest of that game 6. So if he can do the same thing, that would be truly incredible. He has part of the setup already done, but that's more the easy part with the Swain. He needs to find Shyvana and Nico. Easier said than done.
I mean, so that would be the ultimate way for him to stabilize, right? But again, you have to realize that by going 3-5 here, he's going to be ahead of the curve of most of the other boards in the lobby, meaning that while that would be the ultimate way for him to spike, it is not going to be the only way for him to stabilize. But it can be a rough roll down this one, because he needs to really find those few pieces. He needs to find a way to hold the Shen as well, so because of the Rage Wing aspect. Kind of stalling right now to a certain extent, just trying to get the Rage Wing units onto the board so he can start continuing his roll, I would assume, at least. Shio, one Swain. Needs at least one more Swain here, other than that, that's going to be a grief.
There's a Nico, but kind of a little bit all over the place in this case. Going to probably go for the Jade route, do you think?
Kind of has to.
At least for now.
This Gnaw 1 is going to get swapped out. He'll be going into Salvyy's Dragon board here, right? Has found 2 dragons now, so good old-fashioned Siphon will be going into the backline, pairing up together with that Shio with a healing option open now. But Swain has gone to that scaling point now with the Rage Blade. While it's not going to be enough to kill this Shio, just about. Okay, just about actually. With the support from the Ash here probably is going to be enough there, but Look at the spot. This is not a pretty spot by interesting imagination. You're donkey rolling on level 7, most likely to try to find that final. Like, you need one upgrade here. The sport is 1 star right now. This is, besides the Kama, and then you got the Nico, and Nico is a good spike, but you only have, you know, 1 real defensive item in the belt. You could go for Redemption, but even that is kind of not really enough to spike you. This spot is hard. And if you are going to try to be like, okay, I'm going to replicate this style at home, what's what you surprise and have success with it, you're going to have to accept the fact you're going to tank a couple of waves by experiencing situations like this one.
What is your opinion on this board? Taplast, the 96 HP, 7 win streak, Guida, with a fairly unusual board for this stage, almost going to stage 4 at this point.
I mean, it's a fine board, right? So this is a pretty above average stage 3 board. Again, you're looking at the utilization of the build together, right? With the Ionic Spark, the Locket, the Cone, and just like overall, just strong 1 costs while also having Shimmer Scale in to generate some of the extra economy further down the road, right? Like, it's actually not too bad of a situation. It's going to be losing out to Salvyyy, who has gone level 7. He even has a static shift on the bench he hasn't committed as well, so just a thing to look out for here. And he's just like, his economy is in a good spot. He's healthy. He has a transition to pull off that is going to be somewhat difficult to do, but in due time, he has enough HP to work with. He could be looking at, like, I don't really want to say 4-2 because the transition he has to do here is going to be so expensive. They're going to be really hard to pull off. But his board is as strong as it is right now, to the point where he could even like go for something like a 4-5 and just roll it down there. There are like a stretch world, and I mean this is a stretch world where this could be moved on to like a Volibear carry if you really want to go that route.
Big stretch.
It's a big stretch. I wouldn't go there myself. I want to make that incredibly clear, but it is an option here. It gets the anti-heal possibilities as well with the Morello on the bench now. Is he going to be doing the Shimmer Scale into Saya transition without really... I mean, he has a Rage Blade substitute with the Gambler's Blade, I suppose, but even then, this is not necessarily a traditional way of setting it up, but if he can even win like 1 more fight, which is not going to be against Sappho's fully stacked Deja, then he would be in a pretty good spot, I'd say, so far.
Great augments as well, Electro Charge and Ascension. Once that Ascension kicks in, the Wind Blast from the Deja can do so much damage. Archangels and Ascension, the double scaling synergy there means that as long as this fight can get stalled out a little bit until this point, it's going to be another big win for Sappho. Someone that is now sitting at 82 HP, a win streak going as well, so a very good spot for the Spanish player in this game too.
Yeah, but then look at this from Taplast, right? It's a 3-unit loss. It's not big. Like, he is still fine. He lost 9 life. He can do this for a couple more turns. And okay,
as usual,
game got really interesting here, right? Gold Neck is always interesting. So
81 HP though. I mean,
81 HP. It's a weird one to work with because now after the changes to it, like now being 11 turns, okay, he's going for the guild instead, of which I think is. That is fair, right? Because now you can start looking into like a Guild Sire transition instead, right? Giant Slayer is fantastic with a lot of the dragons going around the lobby. You kind of have a fully itemized Sire just right now by doing that. Okay, Glute is now here. What is going on? Because this also, like, these items are also kind of but he has a 2-star setup on the board right now. 54 gold. So he's going to be 4-5ing, I guess, here, right? Like, Windfall is... It's rough because the thing is that Windfall, again, like, it's a huge amount of gold. Gold is good, gold is lovely, but you need to transition that into a board advantage, and he's going to be tanking for a couple of more fights. And when you're hitting something like this board from Salvyyy that got the Radiant Relic as well as that Deja in the backline now online, 2-star Siphon, you're going to be in for a world of hurt, to be completely honest, right? Like, this Rise is just not built to take on these boards.
With the spot he was in with the gold he had before getting that Windfall, it was looking pretty dire in terms of going 8 and rolling down for any meaningful upgrade. So I think he kind of was forced to take it. Obviously, you're not in a position now to go for first place. It's not going to be the case. I think just trying his best to keep his board strong, to roll down on 4-5, as you mentioned, and just maybe sneak in a 5th place, and he might be happy with the way this game has gone for him.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I'm not saying like he's playing to first place here at all, right? Like, he can start looking at a free trainer angle, stuff like that here. But again, this is the power level now that we kind of start to see here. Salvyyy did end up losing that 1 fight to Zbrojson, and Zbrojson is kind of a power level outlier right now, with the Swain just being, you know, it can just end up soloing fights. And when there are fewer targets for the Swain to hit overall, the Swain is going to be more powerful, just due to like how the static shift stack, stuff like that. So
also gonna be 3 Mirage players as well. Safo is on Mirage. Noerum picked up a Mirage Augment in his second choice. So again, being contested unfortunately for him. And we're seeing Salvyyy as well has 2 Dages picked up with Dragon Alliance as well. So gonna be maybe hard for some of these players to find that Deja 2-star if they are fully itemizing this Dragon as their main carry.
Yeah, but again, that's not going to be the case for Salvyyy, right? Like, Deja in these compositions will often just kind of act as an item holder for an AO Shin, unless you're
more Salvyyy kind of ruining the perspective for Noerum especially, who had that exact thing happen to him in that game 1 with the Ao Shin.
It kind of changes the optics to a certain extent, right? And again, Salvyyy right now just needs to maintain his win streak, because looking at his financial situation, he's level 7, he's 20 gold, he's 4 streaking, he's holding a pair on the bench, right? Like, he is not necessarily in the best position when it comes to finances. It's going to be slowly creeping up. He's looking at a 5-2 for like the dragon level angle here. But even then, if he starts going to level 8 there, if he loses his win streak at some point here, he's going to be strapped for cash because of just like how expensive the sport he has to create is going to be.
We talked about a Dragon Alliance, Dragon Horde, very, very strong augments, but you need to find a lot of gold to get those dragons 2-star. It's going to cost, your board overall is going to cost more on average than most other comps when they are finalized, just because dragons are, of course, more expensive. And so it's kind of a hard spot to be in throughout stage 4, especially. This kind of makes or breaks your placement in a lobby like this one.
Well, look at Noerum. Noerum is back in with the AO Shin.
Is he going to do it again?
But he has the Cavalier emblem on the Yasuo. That's going to be an absolute incredible spike, right? Everyone knows this at this point in time. And Mirage onto the AO Shin means he's actually going to be ahead of the curve compared to Salvyyy, right? To a certain extent in terms of having the better dragon overall to work with. And Cavalier's bad Yasuo, like everyone knows this. This is just one of those combinations that are just going to be absolutely impeccable here. And speaking of impeccable, I do believe that the charge of the Hecarim going in. Okay, never mind. Siphon does not go to the backline. That's going to be a massive thing here, because it might mean that there's going to be time. I can just Shroud as well. It just means that this AO Shin is not casting in this lifetime almost.
Finally able to do so, it looks like, but is it too late? How much damage is actually going to come through with this Ao Shin? Has attack speed, doesn't really have damage built in just yet. Siphon, I'm not sure what this Siphon is doing. Still gets the proc, gets the extra healing that we got from Bloodthirster, and going to be enough to take down Noerum to 29 HP. Zbrojson still alive at 22, still able to stabilize to some extent with his board. We'll see what exactly he ended up pivoting into. It looks like Xiaoyu has been found a pair for now. No Shyvana just yet, but Swain 3 is in the works.
Yeah, it's going to be going with the Rage Wing Xiaoyu here. It's a tech that is kind of just like interesting to see. Like, also, I want to highlight something here, right? The second we kind of left Noerim's perspective, he found a Dash in the shop, shipped the AO Shin to the curb instantly. That is something you also need to kind of highlight. That's kind of how this ends up working here, right? It's also interesting item setup here as well. And like double Rage Blade, double Static Shiv here means there's going to be a lot of damage being churned out by these backline carries here, right? He's going to be going for more of a full Rage Wing setup, but especially with that Rage Wing crown, he just needs to find that Shyvana. But to do that, he kind of needs to be level 8 to even have a remote chance of doing that consistently, right? So, like, this is going to be an interesting spot to work with here. He's going to be incredibly stable with a Saya 2 at level 7. He has a Xiaoyu pair. Like, he has everything that he needs right now to stabilize his two copies of the Swain. Again, he could even like go level 8 here and without rolling it down and just kind of naturaling just to get that extra layer of power to the board if he wants to go that route.
And Taplast we saw there, as you mentioned, did end up going into that Xayah guild angle, building the Giant Slayer on the Xayah and hoping that's going to be enough, but has already lost a lot of HP, remember? Taplast was at 96 HP at the end of stage 3, now sitting at 47, has lost pretty much half of the HP he had total, and is now no longer leading the pack in this game 2.
Also 0 gold. I think that is worth noting. He has invested what he can invest into the.
He's level 8 as well, so I mean it's not the worst place to be in.
No, it's not the worst place to be in. I definitely do agree with that fact, but like he's going to be in a position where he's going to be pretty stagnant for a while. Meanwhile, here I like the Zbrojson is rolling it down. I think I kind of do really rate that. Right, he's just trying to find those last couple of upgrades here, trying to stay ahead of the curve. Again,
so unfortunate.
He's going to be stuck.
No Xiaoyu 2, no Shyvana is the big one. Xiaoyu 2 has been found. Obviously not the ideal. You would want Shyvana to slot into this comp. Maybe it will come down later into the game.
I mean, this is actually not too bad, right? Because for a while there was that Jade Saya setup here. Now it's just kind of it's a duo carry, because even Xiaoyu without items here is going to be doing a decent amount of damage, decent amount of work, right? I think that is something you need to look into here. The Jewel Lotus is not necessarily going to be that massive for Saya per se, but it does give a base layer of crit, which also is utilized by everyone else, right? So the Xiaoyu true damage can crit, stuff like that, with the Rage Bling, attack speed, stuff like that. Like, this is actually not a bad setup here. This is going to be one of the real tests again, now that Salvyy's board has spiked more than it was in the past.
Siphon moving into that dangerous pocket, but seems to not quite hit the main carries with a chomp just yet. Can Swain down the same time? Not going to be the case. Salvyy's Dragon board a little bit too strong to handle for Zbrojson, and more dragons means more damage off of a loss as well. 7 HP now for Zbrojson. Essentially, maybe we don't 1 loss away from elimination. Got an 8th place in game 1 without being able to actually play the game, and if he gets an 8th place here, it's going to be very, very tough for him to try and make that comeback in the remaining 4 games and try and make it into that day 3.
It's going to be an uphill battle for sure, right? So Taplast here has a bit of an interesting item set up to work with as well. You're looking at it here and be like, okay, that's a frontline Zephyr. That is going to be by default. It's going to be a frontline Zephyr no matter what. And then there's going to be the Guild AO Shin. I'm not necessarily sure how strong this is, right? And again, there's no active mana gain for the AO Shin, but you can see like the first cast is going to get boosted up by the fact that there's going to be like Cone. He has the Edge of Night as well to kind of preserve it. Has the Omni Vamp from the Guild Crest. So a lot of power to be worked with. Okay, it's talking about a lot of power here. Well, we have another high-end shopping, and that transitions into a Shyvana too.
Ouch. Will Swain be able to do enough? Zbrojson has to win this fight to stay alive. Shyvana is still very much alive and very much dealing damage. The front line has disappeared, and I think Swain is not going to have what it takes to take down Shyvana. Last Fire Breath comes in. Is it going to be enough to take on the Swain? It is, and Zbrojson, I think, is going to be eliminated, unfortunately, for him and for all our Polish fans. Very, very tough start for him in this day 2.
Incredibly tough start for him, right? I think that is definitely something we need to take note of here. But again, also worth noting, like that board, that is Hand of Justice, IE, Jeweled Lotus. That is so much like flow over when it comes to the critical damage as well, right? Because when you have the IE, it gets extra crit chance, gets transitioned into extra critical damage. So like these Shyvana hits, like again, you saw like how just completely removed that Saya from play here now. 2-star Yasuo. That is a big upgrade indeed, David.
And Noerum needed this. He got a very tough placement in game 1. The complete opposite of yesterday. Yesterday he started off with 3 wins in a row to start off that day 1. Needs to find a better result in this game 2. The Yasuo 2 might help, but still only Deja 1 and Thresh Hook as well. Not going to be a good sign for this Deja. Getting brought into a little bit closer into where all the damage comes through, and we're seeing it there. Shyvana immediately deletes everything in her path, and I think Noerum is not going to live for another fight here. Big loss. That's going to be it for Noerum, 7th place.
Then again, to some extent right here, right? He had the bottom opposite corner's bait, but again, good positioning here from Chuso. Being able to catch out the Xiaoyu. Oh, not the Xiaoyu. The Deja. I don't know why I confused that with a Xiaoyu for a second here, okay?
Level Emblem, is it too late, Wida?
It's never too late, David. It's like honestly, it's never too late. But it's kind of hard.
It's hard to build though at this point. Finding the Tom Kench, for example, is going to be a difficult one.
It is, but like again, like I think what does Sappho even pick here? Right? Like I kind of understand Evo, right? Like I mean, it's a rough one for sure, right? Like,
64 HP. You have to take a hit somewhere, right? You have to balance things out, Wida.
I mean, to be fair, Warrior Emblem is not the worst thing in the world because, you know, Yasuo exists, but Yasuo does not exist on this board currently, so that is going to be a bit of a rough one right now. We can see the fact that it's going to be the Cavalier. I could just call her Eve for some reason. Lilia, that's the name. Like, she's actually just called Lilia. Yeah, just holding the Yasuo item. So it's going to be transitioned over the second that Yasuo is found here. Now we're talking about how powerful this guild setup can be, but again, that is going to be that good old-fashioned 2-star Shyvana with all that crit, just, you know, removing everything else from play here, right? Like, this front line is just not meant to be, and Taplast should be grateful for the fact that he has 34 HP, because if he didn't have that, he would have been sent packing by now, and hopefully, like, with that this matchup now out of the pool, he should be looking at a top 4 finish, but both Gluteus and Darkest, they win their matchups.
looking very close here for that, fourth and, the top four essentially, but the fifth and sixth looking very contested. Any one of these bottom four players can do it now. A bit of a gap with, hate to say it, with the Spanish players looking like they're looking pretty strong in this game too.
It's the lower bracket, though, David.
HP
it's the loser bracket, right?
It is. It is. The losers four. Losers will become winners, and the Spanish players are maybe the ones to do it in this game too.
I mean, Salvyyy is in a good spot, right? Even with that Warrior that we're talking about, right? He's not going to be able to cap out as highly as he might have wanted to, but it is going to be a little bit of damage here. And gluteus now has transferred some of that gold we're talking about into board power. Whether or not that's going to be enough for him to kind of stave off this Shyvana coming down is going to be the big case, right? Because the Siphon here just kind of stuck doing nothing for a moment in time, but now this Ryze being unattended for a while should be able to get a cast off in just about time.
Oh, Shyvana Fire Breath, she wasn't able to turn her head completely towards that Ryze for that first 1 or 2 seconds of that Fire Breath, and unfortunately Ryze survives and is able to scale with his ult and get a big win there, keeping gluteus in the fight. Taplast all the way from 96 HP at the end of stage 3 and has been free falling, now down to 8 and maybe gonna end up 6th with he was in such a great position. But as you mentioned, he had a very unusual board and a board that you can't really easily transition into a good comp coming to stage 4 or 5.
Yeah, I don't think he's a big John Mayer fan right now, to be honest. Right, like
at least he won't be, the Taplast in his name is not going to be coming to fruition. There were already an 8th place player in this lobby. That's, of course, an honor that Zbrojson was able to pick up, unfortunately, once again in this game too. But 6th place is definitely not where we want to be. This is, again, as we mentioned, the lower side of the standings are playing in this lobby. So anything that is going to be bought for means you're going to still stay among those bottom 8 players in the standings and not really going to be a great position to make it into day 3. Although, we know, 4 games left still a lot can change in the rest of this day 2.
Like, everything can change, right? Like, I think that's the big thing to note here as well. Like, again, like, everything can change, especially, like, if the outcome of the
Zephyr on the bench?
Yeah, that's going to be sent in last here. Can't corner, but hits the Shyvana. That's going to buy himself the time. But he gets hit with a fresh hook again. This is, again, we've seen this from the players, like, too much, honestly, right? At this point in time, that, like, they just get hit with the fresh hooks. They can position around it. You don't have to corner AO Shin. It probably isn't going to cost him this fight, but it's just an unnecessary thing to do. And I realize that these transitions, they are quite hard to pull off, but at this point in time, when you are playing at this level, you cannot allow yourself to get fresh hooked like that. It's just, it should just not be happening.
Sometimes the case where you're thinking about your own kind of positioning, your own mind games with a Zephyr, trying to find the right unit to put it on, and then you're kind of a bit distracted and not seeing that Thresh, as you mentioned. But yeah, definitely something that should not be occurring. It does make the positioning a little bit difficult because you have Zeke's as well, so it maybe there's a few layers to why that might have been a mistake there from Taplast. Still stays alive though, guarantees the top 4 at this point. gluteus, Maximus, and Salvyyy, both German players, end up going 5th and 6th in this lobby. Spain still on top, but Darkest trying their best to also have a great result. Did so well in the first few games of day 1 and trying to have that, that good momentum going into game 3 after this as well.
Yeah, like again, like here, right? Salvyyy, good positioning. Does not get fresh hooked. Like again, like these are the type you just kind of have to give up on power to a certain extent when you are in these positions. Again, Taplast does find himself in top 4 here, despite it was looking dire for a while, right? But again, it could have ended up costing him that if he kept it into a
Ascension kicks in. Can the Deja do it all by herself? It's gonna be a close one here. Gets split up with the Threshold as well.
Oh.
Is Thresh the best unit in this set? We just absolutely dominating all the last few fights that we've been seeing.
Yeah, corner cat, like again, like these type of hook champions, whether or not it's going to be blitzcrank or going to be fresh, like they are always just incredibly powerful. Like they have immense value because they force your opponent to warp their game plan around what you're doing. That is it's such a powerful tool. Same thing goes for the grab that you can get from the on items, right? I think that is the Rocket Propel Fist. It's just so good as well because it just really forces the entire lobby to kind of just have to alter the position, take risks, and just give up optimal positioning points as well, right? It kind of has the same, especially when there are assassin players in the lobby, not in this lobby currently, obviously, but again, Chuso here has so much power as well with that stand united in the prismatic here. And Darkest, they are down at Combat Augment because of the fact they have that high-end shopping here. So they are going to be looking at a position here while they are in a win streak, but just over the course of time, they should kind of end up falling off if the rest of the lobby is going to be able to match their boards just in pure power level. But again, this Shyvana too has just been running amok on the entirety of the lobby so far. That's going to be Chuso saying ciao ciao, and they're going to be heading into our 1v1 situation here, David.
1v1, Safo still at 33 HP, still looking fairly strong as a bit of an HP lead, but of course, Stage 6, Stage 7, one big loss, and that might be it. Especially for Darkest, I think a big enough loss, 18 HP, is not going to be enough to survive. We'll see what ends up happening and what comp looks stronger. Deja versus Shyvana will be the Dragons, the key pieces of both of these comps coming to this final fight, or final few fights.
This board from Darkest is just... the Darkest's board is so good, man. They are also adding in... the pikes, stuff like that. Here's Safo's board. He is looking like he's more or less as kept out as he can be, right? I think that is something that's worth noting here. There's no Yasuo, which is, again, that's the big factor right now. It's the lag of Yasuo. He has the free Mystics in. But again, if he can find that final Yasuo, he would be in a much better position because he would be able to win some of those closer and in-game fights.
Quick reminder, all that really matters here for Safo is going to be the stalling moment. He has Ascension, he has all that extra damage, Archangels as well. He needs to buy as much time as possible for this Deja, but Shyvana is already onto the main carry, and I think Deja is not going to be able to do enough here. Two main am I misspeaking? No, it's going to be the Yasuo execute. Safo now down to 19, Darkest up to 20 with the Soraka heals, and now it's pretty much an even HP, tie almost going into this final fight.
Yeah, and again, it's also worth noting here the fact that there's a double D-claw setup from Darkest, right? Like his Nico and the Shyvana, his two primary frontliners, that they're both currently carrying a D-claw. With Dragon's Claw being, stronger on Dragon, Shyvana's going to get additional stats from that, and that's going to be a massive spike here to look out for because it makes it so much harder.
Soraka too as well.
Yeah, it's so much harder to push through it, and there's no Ionic Spark, there's no Static Shift here as well.
We'll see if that might be the difference maker. A few upgrades came in for this final fight. Darkest won the last one. Can he do it again? Can he guarantee a win here? With a big enough win here, that might be it. That might be GG before we even get to the last PvE round. Deja, still untouched. Shyvana, not really doing the best in terms of pathing, walking all the way to the back of the board, but I still think it's not going to be enough for this Deja to do it all by herself. The execute comes in once again, and Safo dropped down to 3 HP. Not out of it just yet.
Not down or out just yet here, but again, looking at the item choice here, right? That is not ideal by any way of stretch the imagination. The redemption here is a little bit extra frontline, but it's not really going to be doing a whole lot.
Is there anything Safo can do, Wida, to make this board stronger, to try and turn the tides of these fights?
It's hard, right? Because this board is kind of locked into this right now. There's not an additional layer of gold to work with, right? You could... Because of the way this goes, it's not even a board where they get stronger by going into something like an Aoshin or Shyvana board, because it's just going to be impossible for him to hit here, right? His best bet is just to try to outposition, which is going to be quite hard because of the fact that it's the board that Dark is presenting is quite hard to position around. So, Deja 3 would be the other power spike here. Upgrades to the front liners, right? You're looking at Bard 1, you're looking at Nami 1, you're looking at Leona 1. You're looking at all these 1-stars and 1
cards. All right, 2 upgrades. It's something. You can't really complain. At least a few upgrades did come in, but will it be enough to change the outcome of these fights? I'm not entirely sure. Shyvana looked very, very healthy once she was able to lock onto this Deja at the end of these last 2 fights, and the Yasuo execute as well coming through. I think Deja just doesn't quite have enough flying to stall out for her damage to come through.
And also the fact of the second wind, right? The second wind is quite hard to push through as well. It does have double anti-heal now with the Hecarim rolling that good old Morella, but it's just not going to be enough. Again, the Deja's going to be popping off in the backline. It seems like even with damage amplification coming through from the bot ultimate, the Deja's just fighting against the entirety of the world is going to be falling down.
It's a bit closer this time though, but the Fire Breath comes through. Does the Deja have enough? Ascension kicked in. Archangels as well. It's going to be so close, but not quite enough. Safo takes second. Darkest, emulating the great start he had in day 1, takes the win in game 2. And Turkey is once again, at least for this game, on top of things.